Pardon the brief interruption. I need to tell you about a special upcoming event that's part of the People Reign Lessons from Leaders series, featuring 3 incredible dynamic CXOs who will be discussing how leaders are reinventing work and themselves. It's called When Intelligence is Everywhere, Intelligence is Nowhere. I'll be moderating the discussion, and we're going to be going beyond the headlines. We're going to talk about a couple of key topics that are super timely and relevant, like HR wasn't built for AI, so what's next? Is the CIO still relevant when everyone's a technologist? And what's the real value of intelligence as a service? If you like this podcast, and I hope you do, you must join us. The event's September 17th at noon Eastern Time. Register via the link in the show notes. Everyone who attends will receive a custom AI Maturity Industry Benchmarks Report. It's normally $499. We'll give it to you for free just for attending. It's a virtual event. It will be live streamed. It's free to attend, but you must get pre-approval. There will be a wait list. And you know what else? If you DM me on LinkedIn when you register, I will send you some limited edition People Reign swag. Now back to today's amazing episode.
Yo, it's the future, don't hit the snooze. AI is here giving humans the boost. Team Humans rolling, brains in the game with Dan Turchin. Y'all remember the name. People reign in the mix, no stopping the flow. Better work, better life, yeah, we're ready to go. Robots and humans, a collab, you know. Okay, let's start the show.
This is Dan Turchin from AI and the Future of Work. Welcome to this month's special compilation episode, where we're bringing back 4 great former guests and the ideas they shared about working alongside AI. As always, we're using 11 Labs to digitize my voice for this compilation. The real me reviewed and approved the content and, of course, approved the digital twin. August 12th is International Youth Day, and this past July 15th, the world marked World Youth Skills Day. Both are good moments to remember something we owe the next generation: paths, tools, and advice that inspire them, not warnings that scare them. Because AI isn't a threat, it's an opportunity. And the people entering the workforce right now have an unfair advantage. They haven't spent years absorbing policies and habits that are already obsolete. So they get to start from what's possible instead of unlearning what used to be true. That's why this episode flips the usual direction. These conversations aren't about predicting the future of work. They're about the people already shaping it through the way they approach AI every day. Let's begin with Courtney Cross, business analyst at Leidos and a graduate of the ServiceNow Rise Up program. Courtney shares how he built AI into his everyday work and why he went looking for it long before anyone handed it to him. He also tells us what he did to make his work visible when he was starting out, which is advice worth passing along. So, Courtney, you represent this very important generation that everyone in academia and who's thinking about the future of work is trying to get in your head and trying to figure out. I mentioned, like in the fun fact, AI is a very destabilizing force for a lot of early career employees like yourself, but there are also amazing opportunities that AI creates, and you've chosen very intentionally to pursue a path like that. What do you hear when you're talking to your friends, your colleagues, maybe your college friends, about how they think about AI impacting their careers?
It can go to either way, left or right, depending on who you speak to. Some people love AI and they love to leverage AI. Some people feel threatened by it, saying, hey, AI can take my job, or my job is going to be obsolete because AI can do it. But what I would say to that is you would have to learn how to leverage AI, use AI to make your job easier and make your life better, so make your work-life balance better. What I mean by that. So just for an example, in my work life, I use AI pretty much every day. So for me, I'm a business analyst. I write stories. I gather requirements from customers. So as I write those requirements down, I may use AI to help me write the story of how we're going to deliver these requirements to our customer. It can tighten it up. Maybe I missed something during that recording of our session, and it can help. So just leverage it. Always leverage it. Never have the mindset that, hey, it can take my job, even though that may be true. But again, always find the light in a situation and use it to your advantage instead of always looking at it in a way of, oh, I'm going to be done with this job, or no, just find a better way because it can help. It always can help.
For those who aren't familiar with Leidos, big defense contractor, great employer. Maybe say a little bit more about, are you, in your day job, would you say, are you running to AI or is it running to you? Like, is Leidos providing the tools and forcing you to use it, or are you proactively going to AI because you feel like it'll make you a better analyst?
I'm proactively going to AI because I feel like it'll make me a better analyst. Also, right now within our company, it's encouraged to use AI, so that was one thing that we went over at our last town hall. The CEO of our company encouraged everyone to make sure you use AI, leverage it. It's something that we're going to be handing down to all of our employees. So the more I'm comfortable with using it, the better my skill level is going to be once we do have something company wide that we all can use. And right now we have a bot within Microsoft Teams, but it's something that we're still tweaking, implementing, and just figuring that out. But as far as me, I'm leveraging it right now. So once it's available to everyone, I'll make sure I'm ahead of the curve and I know how to use it. And one thing that I felt like I did to separate myself was I made my own project. So on my resume, I had a link to a project that I made. They would be able to click that link and actually see me talk through the project and show them. Now, that's not something that everyone probably would do, but that would be my recommendation, because we would always hear, do a project, but no one knew how to display those projects. That was the catch.
So you graduate from Rise Up, you're at Johnson Controls. Talk us through how that Rise Up certification or certifications helped you get your job at Leidos.
So the way that those certifications helped me, I would say they helped me get noticed. The certifications, when you don't have as much experience, you can't really leverage those too much because employers are looking for experience. They want to see, can you do it? The certifications just show to the majority of people, hey, you can study for a test, you can pass. That's what they're going to say. That's what I got that a lot. The certifications did me well. They got me noticed. And also I was able to leverage those within, negotiations when it came to time to talk about salary, the things that I wanted. I knew those certifications would separate me from another person that had my level of experience, but they did not have the certifications. And also, companies actually get paid depending on how many certifications their team has. So I knew that as well, so they helped out tremendously in the job hunt.
Our next guest is Andrea Iorio, keynote speaker and author of Between You and AI, previously Chief Digital Officer at L'Oreal Brazil. Andrea describes reverse mentoring, where the youngest people in the company sat down and taught the leadership team what they were missing. He also shares what his own days look like now that these tools do the heavy lifting and what he chose to do with the time that came back. Take us inside of this reverse mentoring. Was that culturally?
Yeah, that's how we called it.
I love that visual.
Look, I mean, I think it was one of the most powerful things we've ever done to change people's mindset, because, it's very abstract, whenever you think or say, okay, let's train our people to think differently, to open their mind. And we managed to do that through this, again, reverse mentoring. The way it worked was the following. Instead of just, and of course we would keep the traditional mentoring, which was, the leaders or C-levels mentoring, the young talents within the company. But we also did the opposite, which was we'd have some, and we would be very selective and even prepare these young talents we'd have, because otherwise, if not really well crafted, this reverse mentoring would just be unproductive or just, all over the place. So we'd tell them, to cover some topics and so on, but they would just give an overview of, how Gen Zers make purchasing decisions nowadays, how influencers work on TikTok. They would just, have our leaders download apps and go through them and be updated with the latest trends, and understand now that, for example, a company like L'Oreal, instead of just looking to its traditional competitors, would have to start look to beauty influencers that from one day to the other outsource production of cosmetics, but they have a much bigger and cheaper audience that they can cater to because they have already people following them. And that was something that our leaders had no idea about. Or just, that you could create an ad, maybe even using AI instead of paying millions of dollars for a TV ad. And so that was very powerful.
Talk through, what does a day of work look like where you're liberated from these mundane kind of tasks that make you feel like you're a robot?
Totally. I mean, I think that overall the day looks like, a day where you use AI as a co-pilot to, first of all, analyze all the new information and data that you're getting daily and extract insights from it. Because we're bombarded with so much new information, data, emails. I loved, for example, the new Apple iOS feature that in your mail summarizes through AI. You don't have to click on it. You already see the summary of it as soon as you open. And that is already something that feels so small, but it is so important. So you then have to click through all the emails and you already see a summary of it. Well, that's already a great example of how a day at work looks like. Outsourcing to AI, something like that. And so all the data manipulation, insights extraction, and then you'd have more time to focus on the results, critically looking at the correlations and making decisions on top of them. A second thing, again, is sort of like a day that has less work about work. Again, where you'd maybe, even through an agent, and so through a multi-step approach, you'd have your meetings recorded and transcribed and summarized, and maybe even, already chewed out as a PowerPoint via Gamma app. And that's when you already have anyone in the meeting having a great summary of what it has been said, which also helps on another big problem, that is lots of people sit into meetings they shouldn't be at, exactly because we were not able to share the information that was talked through at the meeting. So we would call in people just to watch while we or leaders make decisions. And now you have a solution for that. So, these are just small examples, but overall, it is critically becoming curators of our workflows and looking at, okay, so what it is repetitive that I automate, what it is that also I augment, namely, how do I use AI to improve that? If I also sometimes, let's say for my job as a speaker, I create content for social media, right? Well, then I've learned to use Canva or VO3 or just all of these tools to just create better content. I'm not outsourcing that to AI, but instead of having a team of 3 designers, you can just do it by yourself. And so that's augmentation. And third, how do I spend better my time that I earn back? And again, that is what really will make us, more productive, because there's actually a productivity trap there, because if we think, okay, I'm being more productive because I automate a lot of things, well, our competitors are doing the same, and other professionals in the same area, our colleagues at work. So I think I'm being more productive, but I'm not really being more productive, because so that sounds like a paradox, but actually everybody's becoming more productive. So I need to find something else that really makes me stand out. So overall, I think it's a little bit of how the day looks like. Hopefully a day with a little bit more free time, and hopefully a day with much more purpose in the work we do. That, as you've said, sometimes if we do only the repetitive stuff, we feel like modern day Sisyphus is like rolling up the rock up the hill just to see it roll back overnight.
Next, we hear from Jake Saper, general partner at Emergence Capital, and an early investor in Zoom, Gusto, and Viva. Jake shares what happened when he asked AI to tell him the truth about himself and why the response genuinely surprised him. He also argues that as building things becomes easier, there's one thing that will matter more than ever.
My hope is that AI will help create space for deeper meaning, perhaps in rarer moments, if that makes sense, right? I think that, let me unpack that a little bit. So in one case, like if one of my kids, for example, doesn't feel like she can write beautifully, write beautiful poetry or play instrument very well or what have you, but she still has a unique perspective and unique experience on life that I would love for her to be able to share with the world so other people connect with. Working with AI to get that out of her, I think would be really beautiful. Like if AI can act in a truly symbiotic way to figure out like what is the authentic truth of this person, I think that that's really powerful. I mean, I give you an anecdote that happened to me yesterday. I was working on my 2026 goals and I was working on it in ChatGPT. And I was kind of iterating back and forth on it. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me really harsh feedback about myself based upon everything it knows about me on the internet, about what I've shared with it in chat. And, actionable, but like no holes barred. Where am I falling short and how can I get better? And I would say I was reading the output to one of my best friends this morning at breakfast. And 75% of what I read to him really hit me in the gut. Like it was real. It was a really insightful take on me. 25% was sort of like reading an astrology thing where it's like, that could be anybody. But 75% was like, no, that's real. That's me. Which is so powerful. We're only in the beginning of 2026. Like how insightful can this stuff get to understand us as people? And if you translate that back into the art format, what if I was able to partner with ChatGPT to take these hard, ugly parts of myself and translate that into art? So that if you, Dan, are struggling with some similar darkness, some similar stuff that ChatGPT has helped you unearth, my being able to translate that out into the world would resonate more with you and create a moment of meaning that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. Well, from a company formation perspective, it's much easier to build a demo. It's much harder to build a moat, right? Gen AI has collapsed the cost of building something that looks good. So we're seeing a lot more Me Too products, a lot more noise. You used to write code. Now you kind of orchestrate APIs and agents in natural language, which is awesome, but it does change investing because a slick demo is cheaper and it's therefore less informative. That being said, obviously this is a transformational moment. There are not just new companies, but whole new business models that are being launched. You mentioned Mechanical Orchard, which is an AI-enabled services business. So they're selling an outcome versus software. This is an entirely new business model that's being born. And just like SaaS came out of the last technology wave of on-prem to the cloud, there are new business models that are going to be created by this technology wave of the rise of AI. And I find that very energizing. But yeah, my job is to sort through that, and founders' job is to figure out how you can differentiate yourselves. I think one other important thing to note about this kind of generation post-Gen AI of company startups and startup building is the rate of growth has changed meaningfully. So we did an analysis on companies in kind of the B2B software realm, which is where we tend to be focused. In 2022, it took the top quartile of those companies 18 months to go from 0 to $1 million in ARR. In 2025, the top quartile of B2B software companies is going from 0 to 1 million in 4 months. And this correlates with what we're seeing anecdotally. Right before we went on break, we had 3 companies come in on Monday and present that had all gone 0 to 3 million in ARR in a year. 4 years ago, that would have been mind-blowing growth. But now, in part because there's so much demand from buyers, in part because this technology has unlocked things that weren't possible before, a lot of these companies are able to grow faster. I would say that AI will democratize the creation and commoditize the execution of art. So the scarce thing, actually, interestingly, thinking back to venture, the scarce thing will become taste, intention, trust. right? AI collapses the cost of iteration. It can turn, I can't draw, I can't write, I can't whatever, into I can direct, which I think will unlock a lot of latent creativity inside a lot of people. But it also creates this flood, or you could call it a sloppy flood, if you want to use the term du jour. When output is cheap, attention becomes the bottleneck. So I think the enduring impact is a shift from raw production to curation and point of view. The most valuable creators will be the ones with distinctive taste, authentic intent, and a relationship with an audience, not just the ones who can execute.
Finally, we turn to Matt Britton, CEO of Suzy and author of Generation AI. Matt explains why the question everyone asks him, which tool should I use, is the least interesting one, and what he'd rather people start with instead. He also shares an optimistic view of what rises in value once memorizing and repeating information stops being the point.
I speak about AI on stages all around the world, and one of the most popular questions I get after I speak is, what tool should I be using? And I always push back with, what is the most important problems that you need to solve? Because a lot of the tools, there's tools out there to solve any individual task that you're looking to solve. But if you don't have an idea of the big problem you're trying to solve, you're going to be an inch deep and a mile wide. And when you look at your professional progress or your business progress a year later, you're not going to really have moved the needle. Where instead, if you focus on three big problems, you think about, what is my growth limiting factor? Or what is the area where I want to be more efficient? And I'm just going to focus on that. And I'm going to take one step at a time in terms of building an automation or building an agent that can help me. Well, then the tools kind of fall into place. Or if you're just inundated with tools, you're just kind of playing with a lot of things. And again, you're not really accomplishing anything. So I think when companies talk about how AI isn't moving the needle, largely that's the case. I work with a big brand in the fashion and apparel space where I was at one of their vendor fairs and they had like 40 different AI vendors. And the CMO came up to me and she's like, we're not really doing anything with AI. I'm like, well, what are all these people for? And she didn't really know, because basically it's like death by a thousand cuts. Everyone in her organization is just licensing and working with all these little tools. But again, they're not really moving the needle on the business. It starts with that's why AI is not something that a leader can just sort of delegate, because AI is connected to problem solving, and the biggest problems need to be solved by the most senior leaders in the organization.
What's one non-obvious insight or interview or something that your research for the book revealed?
I think my take on AI is it really is signaling the end of the knowledge economy. Meaning, for the last 2.5 decades, if you were able to, and if you think about the way that we are educated as young as kindergarten, we're taught to read books and listen in class, and then we get tested to prove that we've memorized those things, right? That we can regurgitate. So it's memorization and regurgitation over and over again. And if you're able to do that well, up until when you memorize and regurgitate, a standardized test, then you can get into a good college. And if you do that, all of a sudden you're looked at by society, especially here in America, as somebody that's exemplary or outstanding. But the reality is now your ability to memorize and regurgitate is now commoditized, right? Because you have this tool that has all the memory in human history and can regurgitate it into any context you want. So if you're an accountant and you have the memorization of how to do someone's taxes, or a lawyer, and you have memorization of how to write someone's contract, or even a radiologist and how to read someone's x-ray, those are all areas where AI is going to be disintermediating you if they haven't already. So what's left? Well, it's about critical thinking. It's about creativity. It's about problem solving. And ultimately, the way I like to kind of bottle it up is the future is about those who are adept at identifying the problem that needs to be solved versus those that are experts in how to solve the problem. Because the specialized skill sets and knobs and dials, whether you're a graphic designer, a photographer, you can go on and on, a coder, right? Those people were rewarded so handsomely over the last 25 years. But now it's not necessarily about knowing how to code. It's about understanding what you should be coding and having that insight and the creativity. That is a massive shift. And it's a shift away from the knowledge economy to a whole nother realm of society, which is going to value a completely different set of skills and attributes for people to be successful.
The world of work gets better when we're willing to challenge old beliefs and let people and machines together help us dream bigger Across these conversations, one theme stands out. The advantage isn't the tools, because everyone has those now. What sets people apart is judgment, knowing which problem deserves their effort and what to keep for themselves. If any of these perspectives resonated with you, listen to the full episodes. Links are in today's show notes. And if you know someone building their career alongside these tools, share this episode with them or leave a comment with your perspective. Thanks for listening to this special edition of AI and the Future of Work. Till next time, keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep dreaming bigger.
Yo, it's the end of the show, time to power it down. AI's the sis, but humans wear the crown. Team Human in the house, got the vibe so clever. Dan Turchin from People Rain, making us better. We learned about AI for humans. We're ready to conquer the future, that's all for now. See you next time.